Yesterday afternoon, the Secretary of State for Children's, Families and Schools, Ed Balls, launched the Children's Plan, a long-term vision to improve schools and a step change in the way that parents and families are supported to deal with the new challenges that face young people in the 21st century. The plan proposes a raft of new ideas. £225 million will be spent on upgrading 3,500 playgrounds. The plan also hopes to alleviate child poverty by 2020 completely and halve it by 2010. Furthermore, £160 million will be spent on providing places where young people can gather and meet up. I've come here today to speak to Jim Knight, the Minister for Schools, to discuss the new children's plan and some of the new proposals put forward in it. So, under the new children's plan announced yesterday, schools are set to provide much more holistic services in terms of healthcare, social care, etc. Do you not think this may put an unnecessary burden on schools and teachers themselves? And a move away from education to social issues, do you think schools should maybe be focusing more on education?
Well, certainly we've got to make sure that as we implement this, we don't create an unmanageable burden for the professionals who work in schools. But what parents and experts were both telling us is that if we can intervene earlier to sort out a problem before it becomes a crisis, then it's much easier to do so. And we can only intervene earlier if we've got health professionals, social services, therapists working alongside professionals who know children and young people very well through their work in schools. So one of the things we're talking about, for example, is with our school building programme, where we refurbish and rebuild every secondary school and half of primary schools by 2020, to see if we can co-locate some health and social services and so on alongside schools. Can we increase the number of school nurses so we're getting health professionals in there. So we're not adding burdens to existing staff, we're just helping them have an easier relationship with other services.
And will the new schools be quite similar to, I'm not sure if you're too familiar with the Sure Start nursery scheme, will they be similar to that?
Well,
in terms of services?
Certainly that would be one of the things we'd be looking to co-locate, and there are services provided by Sure Start that we want all schools to be starting to offer through the extended services that we want them all to be delivering by 2010. So things like wraparound childcare from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, parental engagement, as well as the catch up and stretch and the out of hours activities that are more educationally based but are still an important part of the extended school.
Sure. And recently Ed Balls has said that the UK's schools are not in fact world class at the moment. Many people will ask, why is this the case despite Labour coming to government, pledging to spend lots of money on education, which has been done, 10 years has now passed. How is this new children's plan going to differ to other initiatives put forward by your government?
Well, the children's plan is very different because it's much wider in its scope. It's really joining up the dots. There are a lot of individual things that are already ongoing in certain places that are in the children's plan that we're now trying to join up into a coherent whole. But in terms of our record over 10 years, it's just important to understand the woeful inheritance that we had in 1997. So in terms of numbers of 16-year-olds achieving 5 higher level GCSEs, it was less than half got 5, it's now 60%. If you include English and maths, then you've got a similar level of improvement. There are now 100,000 more children achieving reading and writing standard at 11 than used to 10 years ago. So we've moved from below average to above average, but not yet world class. And that's the aspiration that we've got to chase after.
Sure. And the new children's plan reaffirms the government's original pledge to halve child poverty by 2010 and end it by 2020. Since 1998, between 1998 and 2005, 700,000 children were taken out of poverty. If you're going to meet your target, you're going to have to greatly increase the number of children coming out of poverty. And apart from the tax credits and benefits that low-income families are going to receive, which has been mentioned in the budget, what other initiatives will be put forward to help alleviate child poverty in this country?
Part of it is actually how we support parents themselves, and there's a lot in the children's plan about parental support and some targeted parental support for those that particularly need it. That will in turn help them to be able to access employment which is one of the best routes out of poverty. Clearly it is, rather than simply depending on the state to do it for you. So if we can give them the right support for their children, then they're more confident to be able to get on for themselves and for their children, knowing that not only are their children safe, but they're also getting on, doing well in their education, and parents are sort of liberated by that to be able to deal with the poverty issues that they might be facing.
Sure. And you're going to raise the number of free hours from 12 to 15 for, I think it's 3 and 4 year olds, for free nursery places, and provide 20,000 extra places for 2-year-olds in nursery. Surely these new proposals are going to cost a lot of money, and surely there's going to be cuts elsewhere.
Well, we announced the allocation of just over £1 billion yesterday to go with the children's plan. So we have costed quite carefully what we've put in there in terms of the early years provision you just talked about, in terms of the play provision and the youth provision that are also big spending commitments that we made yesterday. But a responsible government isn't going to promise something that it can't fund. And we took quite a lot of time and care to make sure that the money was there in order to be able to deliver this. And it would be lovely to go even further with nursery provision, but got to be able to afford it.
Sure. And under the new plan, a lot of emphasis is put on parents. Parents are going to need to do a lot of work at home with their children if this plan is going to go through. How do you purport to get through to these parents and change the sort of mentality we have in Britain, where some of the parenting is very poor, to say the least?
Well, Sure Start helps. And the rollout of children's centres, one in every community, is an important part of that story, so that particularly for those parents that really need the support, it is there for them. But beyond that, the amount of information that we can give to parents, not only about whether or not their child has turned up at school, about holidays and some of the normal things, but about how they're doing academically, what homework has been set, offering some of the curriculum content so that they can access it to help their children out, offering a personal tutor for every child to take them from primary into secondary and through their secondary journey as a single point of contact that parents know. And if the personal tutor feels that they're not hearing from the parent, the personal tutor then being able to pop round or ring them up and see if there's a problem, and just make sure that that engagement, that relationship between home and school is working really well.
Sure. And finally, how long do you think it's going to take until we see some real evidence of progress in this actual field? Is it long term, or is it we going to have to wait 10 or 15 years, or are we going to start seeing some effects in the shorter term?
This is a 10-year plan with goals for 2020 for 13 years, but we've committed to producing a document in a year's time to set out how we're doing. There are a number of things that we're consulting on through next year that we're talking about in the plan, so that will be able to sort of distill those down into something a little firmer as well. So in just a year's time you'll hear more from us about how we're doing in the delivery of this.
Jim Knight, thank you very much for your time.